Hello, welcome to the Panhandle Primate Podcast. I'm your host, Dexter Kearley, and today's episode is called Barriers to Entry. In June of 2025, I went to Greensboro, North Carolina to attend the Cosmic Summit 2025. It was a very good time. I was excited to get to go. Really, this was the first time I've ever attended a show or like a conference of this sort. And I had really been looking forward to it. The speaker list continued to stack up like so. In the months coming up, I knew Randall Carlson was going to be there. I knew Ben Van Kerkwyk was going to be there. And then just the list just started filling up with all these different speakers that I really wanted to, meet and get to talk to, get a feel for, really, like in-person feel for. And Matt Beall, here in the middle, he brought his ancient stone vase collection, which was amazing. Bob Grenier, I loved getting to listen to his conversation or his presentation and get to have conversations with him, which was awesome. And then there was other presentations that I did not get the opportunity to attend, such as believe it was called Buried Egypt. This one right here with Catherine Ulissey. She's married to Robert Schoch, Dr. Robert Schoch, I guess I should say. But I wanted to attend her presentation, but it was going on at the same time that another one was going on, so I had to kind of make a choice. But since the conference, I've actually gotten a chance to watch her presentation, and I've greatly enjoyed it. Like, I thought it was really interesting, and I'm actually going to refer to it a little bit today in this presentation. And a couple other people, Ashton Forbes, I got to meet him, which was cool. I got to go to this Dr. Gunter Klittenschka. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. I saw this Jay Anderson, his presentation. I didn't get to see Hugh Newman present, but I've watched like countless hours of his show, Megalithomania, which is awesome. So anyway, today's talk is is barriers of entry. So I went to this conference, and funny enough, one of the first days, my friend who I was staying with there in North Carolina, he came to the conference with me, and he came and watched the Bob Grenier presentation called Annihilating Space-Time, and it's very dense information, and I didn't really prompt him before the show, or before the presentation, so he was kind of completely lost throughout the presentation, which was kind of, I kind of felt bad, but at the same time, that's just the nature of the beast, right? There are barriers to entry. Like, this is something that I watch a lot and I pay attention a lot to, but once I started thinking about how I wanted to present some of, kind of recap and present this topic, I got to thinking about, why I went and what was the point of going, and maybe some of the lessons that the alternative history community invokes or teaches. And one of them is that you don't know what you're looking at. You might be walking through a field and see a rock sitting in the middle of the field and think, oh, that's just a rock. When in reality, it might be part of a campfire, an ancient campfire, like that in my area, of course, here in Central Texas, maybe the Comanches, right, maybe the settlers had a campfire pit. Maybe, who knows, right? Who knows who had it? But if I'm just walking through this field and I come across a rock, I might not know what I'm looking at. I might just think it's just a rock, right? Or it's just Like, I might find an arrowhead, but think, oh, it's just an arrowhead, right? It's not signs of an ancient civilization. This is actually interesting because it's how Göbekli Tepe was found, which is in Turkey. Supposedly, a farmer was just plowing and he hit this rock. And he decided, like, oh, well, let me just dig this rock out to get it out of my way since I'm a farmer or whatever. And he ends up discovering that it's the top of this huge T-shaped pillar. And now it's a huge archaeological site. I can probably pull it up real quick, actually. I didn't think about pulling up Göbekli Tepe, but I can pull it up real quick. Just to show you give you a little bit of an idea. Let's see here. Give you a little bit of an idea of what this dude found randomly in this hill, right? So it's most people who are like into this world know about this stuff, or know about Göbekli Tepe because it's like super relevant, super important. And many people believe that it was intentionally buried. However, I subscribe, but also ascribe to some of the projections from the Snake Bros, where they kind of think that it's successive mitten piles that just collapsed. So instead of it being intentionally buried in one act, it was actually inadvertently buried over, a long time of occupation of, I guess this would be like Neolithic humans. But what's important, I guess, to say is, so this is kind of the projection of what they think it looked like right here. Or what it looks like today. These people almost look like modern people in it. But all that to say that you may think that what you're looking at is just a rock, when in reality it's actually something bigger, something more significant, something more important. So it's with this idea that I was wanting to show a little clip, start off with a little clip. This is from the movie The Prestige, which came out in 2006, starring Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, and Scarlett Johansson. Let's see, among other people, actually. There was a bunch. Michael Caine was in it. I guess Rebecca Hall. David Bowie, would play Tesla, which is kind of crazy. A bunch of different people were in it, but it was a super awesome movie. And I was just I'm going to just play like a little clip of it.
You know how he does it? He has no trick. It's real. Every great magic trick consists of 3 acts. The first act is called the pledge. The magician shows you something ordinary, but of course, it probably isn't. The second act is called the turn.
He's obsessed with discovering your method.
The magician makes this ordinary something do something extraordinary. Now you're looking for the secret, but you won't find it. That's why there's a third act called the prestige. This is the part with the twists and turns, where lives hang in the balance. Julie, come on! And you see something shocking you've never seen before. This was built by a man who can actually do what magicians pretend to do. Real magic.
I know what you really are!
How does he do it? You want the truth.
Nothing is impossible.
I'll break it down, bro.
All right, we'll end it there. But amazing movie. They don't make movies like that anymore, I don't believe. Or to me, it doesn't seem like it. But I thought that was a good way, of prefacing this. Is, there are the initiated and then there are the uninitiated. So I would say there's the initiated few and the uninitiated masses. So if the few people that know the trick, can see the trick, and can diagnose the trick, then it's not magic to them. It's a process, right? They understand how it works. So in this way, magic kind of takes advantage of this thing where humans they think they know what they're looking at. They think they know what they're seeing. But in reality, it's just a presentation, right? Like, you're seeing a hole in the ground. You don't know how that hole got there, right? You're seeing a rock in the middle of the field. You don't know how that rock got there. You're assuming you know. Or you might not even think about it, which is actually what I realized that the vast majority of my experience was not looking at it. But I wanted to pull up this real quick because this is just a little clip from, I guess the channel's called History Drops, but it's Randall Carlson. This is the proof of the Great American Flood. And I'm just going to kind of start and stop this thing so that we don't get, copyrighted. But to my point, this is kind of what I'm talking about.
The floor of it is mantled with these gigantic current ripples. Some of them are 40 and 50 feet high. And
See, this is kind of what I'm meaning, right? Just right off the bat. If we're flying over this landscape, we think, wow, that's beautiful, quote unquote, natural formations. But we don't think about how they got there. We just kind of assume that we understand the process by which they got there. But here, as you can see, the airplane's flying over and it's looking at these, and he's explaining, which it's funny because the person he's explaining this to in the video is actually Matt Beall, who I'm going to be talking about a little bit later in the episode. But as you can see, these huge ripples on the landscape. And when we look at it, it's hard to imagine everything we see underneath water, right? But that's kind of what his proposal is.
100 feet in wavelength. That's a 4-story building.
Yeah, that's
so
massive.
You're standing in the trough between them. You can't see over them. You're just looking at two big old hills. I've been through Camas Prairie many times, and I've taken groups there. If you stand right there in those ripples, they diminish in size from north to south. The basin is about...
See, and like what he's showing here is this is the top topography of the landscape. And this bottom spot shows that there are these gravel pit deposits that are 100 feet wide, right? So if you think about a beach, and the waves come in, and as the waves, you got high tide where it comes in high, and then low tide, it kind of works its way out. Well, as it works its way out, it leaves these little ripples on the beach. And they're very small, right? But you can measure the wavelength, right? And the rate of recession of the shoreline as it is going out. So as you can see, like this gravel pit. Let me transition back over here. This gravel pit is showing that it's 100 feet wide, and it slopes towards the north, right? So it's all these geological signs that people can look at and see. And tell them something if you're an initiate, right, of the whatever it is, the information.
Miles long. The ripples, they sort of diminish in size so that they sort of taper out about 5 or 6 miles down from where they start.
So they're higher in the north. They're larger in the north.
They're higher in the north.
Okay.
Right. So, and the high water mark consistently was at 4,200 feet above sea level. Clark Fork River, 4,200 feet. Camas Prairie, 4,200 feet. Bitterroot Valley, 4,200 feet. Missoula.
So what he's showing here is essentially just saying that all of these different places, there's all of these different signs of catastrophic flooding, right? And there's these underfit, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, underfit rivers, right? So you have a river coming over this waterfall. However, what created that landscape was, like, let's see what he says actually.
Cut this landscape. Now, when the flow first came through here, this canyon didn't exist. The water flow was on top, and it was probably 200, 300 feet deep. As it swept over the land, it exploited weaknesses in the rock and then began to downcut the canyon. And what happens then is the water that's flowing over the surface, once it begins to exploit a weakness in the rock, it begins to create this channel The channel will then capture that.
So even just like in this spot right here, as you're looking at it, I've seen countless landscapes like this, especially whenever I was younger. I did a lot of camping and a lot of traveling, a lot of rock climbing and stuff. I would drive across these, and we would climb on these massive boulders, in all different places across the mostly across the West. That's where most of my stomping grounds were for climbing. But you had these massive cliffs and you had these massive boulders all over the place. And you just look at it and it feels almost storybook, right? Whenever you're hiking in these like wilderness spots, you can almost imagine yourself in something like The Lord of the Rings, right? With this mythical landscape around you. And in reality, that's what we're dealing with. A lot of these sites is like they're mythical, landscapes. And so I'll jump off from this. My main point, you need to watch Randall Carlson as much as possible. I mean, he is a great resource. And basically one of my points, my point about Randall Carlson is when you look at the landscape. Let me see here. Let me jump actually back into my notes, okay? So the thing about Randall Carlson that's really helpful is he gives you a geological context for the state of amnesia, which is how Graham Hancock puts it, where we as a civilization we don't know where we came from. So if I ask you what a human being looked like 20,000 years ago, well, they looked the same, but what was their culture like? We have almost no evidence for this. We have guesses, and there's people that have hunter-gatherer as big as they were, as good as they were. They hadn't figured out writing. They actually say that, let me see here, I wrote it down. So writing didn't happen until 3,200 BCE, which is before current era or before Christ, whatever you want to say. But that's 5,700 years ago. Right? The Younger Dryas catastrophe, which Randall Carlson's proposal is that a lot of the landscapes that we see were cut during the Younger Dryas period. They actually, here, I actually pulled up let me see if I can pull up this map large for you. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So this is humanoriginproject.com. And as you can see here, this is the climate map for the last 25,000 years. And we are in the Holocene age. This is the Holocene and the Pleistocene barrier, right? So right here where it switches from the blue, which was the last ice age, into the red, which is the current interglacial stage that we're in. Kind of like think of it as a pendulum that kind of goes back and forth. We have these periods of time where there's a large amount of land ice, and then we have periods of time where it all retreats back off the planet. And right now we're in this Holocene period, which is interesting because as you can see, the red is like warmer temperatures than the blue, right? The blue goes way low down, and at the peak of the Younger Dryas cold period, we were, what would that difference be? Quite a few, 20 degrees Celsius cooler than what we are now. And this was like cataclysmic, right? This is the Pleistocene is marked by a huge mass extinction event that humanity is lucky that we made it through. We barely made it through it, honestly. And most animals did not make it through the Pleistocene. This is where we lost like the woolly mammoth, and we lost the saber-toothed tiger, the short-nosed bear. There were armadillos the size of like freaking slug bugs and stuff. I mean, giant beavers. It was crazy. It was like North America was a wild place. And then this cataclysm happened, completely rewrote the entire landscape of North America and left humanity to recover, right? And so the question is, I think the question is kind of beyond asking now, that there obviously was a huge cataclysm that completely reset civilization as we know it, or set history on a path to become what we know it to be. So some people say, oh, the Younger Dryas was probably just the flood of the Bible. This is not true, because the Younger Dryas took place 12,000. What did it say up here? Let's see what it says. 11,600 years ago. Well, Noah's flood is said to have happened 5,000 years ago, which there is possible evidence that there was a maybe like a meteor impact into the Arabian Sea, and it caused a big pulse of water to go up and like flood out the Levant area. And some people think that that could have been what that was referring to. I do think the hard thing is, anytime you're looking at a concept and you're saying something as specific as Noah's flood or Atlantis, right? That, like, I have a problem, because even at this conference there was an Atlantis presentation, and it's interesting to me because I kind of wonder if that's like too confining, right? For instance, if I was to say, actually, I don't know if I can come up with a good example right off the top of my head, but it just seems a little ludicrous to me that anytime we have a flooding event, we treat it like there was only one flooding event that ever happened on the planet, when in reality, more than likely, there was multiple flooding events that have happened throughout and affected different places differently, right? Tsunamis, flash floods, cataclysmic, events like the events around the Younger Dryas, which there is a lot of discussion around what caused the Younger Dryas. The cosmic, let me see here. I think I got it pulled up here. No, I don't think I have it pulled up. I thought I had. No. So, let me see. Oh, here we go. Let's go here, right here, though. Okay, look at this, though. For all life on the planet and humans, it must have been a harrowing period. Global sea levels rose an estimated 400 feet. Almost 75% of all megafauna on the planet were wiped out. Human populations also declined, with the disappearance of the North American Clovis Ancient Society from the fossil record. And so, I mean, if you think about it, that's a big deal, right? Here marks the beginning of the Earth's period known as the Holocene. It has been the most stable period in terms of climate we have ever seen in the last 100,000 years. So we are in a blessed period of time with our current chunk of history. And I think it is important to try to expand our view and our connotation of what we are dealing with or what we are experiencing. So a lot of people have asked me, like, what's the point, right? Like, what's the point of worrying about this stuff or looking into this stuff or learning about this stuff? It happened so long ago. What are the significance of it? Well, if this did happen, it could have erased a humanity that was very different than ours, that maybe had extremely different conventions, maybe viewed things like economics and spirituality in completely different ways than we have, can experience today or can liken back to. So the whole point is basically saying, okay, Randall Carlson points out that when we look at the landscape specifically of North America, or in particularly of North America, we can see that there was a cataclysmic effect that that did kill off 75% of all megafauna. And if you know, we are megafauna, humans, primates, Homo sapiens fit the classification for megafauna. So 75% of all megafauna died off and were deleted. And so I think that is significant in regards to who we are, right? Who we are as people and who we are as participants on this planet. And if we don't take this into account, it could give us an incorrect perception of what we are and who we are and what we're doing here. So all of that to say, here, let me jump back into, so I actually have gone completely off from my presentation, but so Randall Carlson points out the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, and it could have also possibly been, a lot of people propose that it was a solar flare that hit the planet and possibly caused lightning bolts and stuff to like vitrify the rock and blow out huge chunks of earth and probably cause its own catastrophe as well as melt the ice. So also, just really quickly, one of the things that's super cool about Randall Carlson is he goes into esoteric knowledge and he talks about different symbolisms. And so one of the big proposals for the Younger Dryas impact is this ancient comet that entered into our solar system and started breaking up. And I believe that, I think they said maybe 20,000, maybe more, I don't know, a long time ago. And they call it Comet Anki. And it's been breaking up over all of these different years that it's been going around the planet. And now we experience the remnants of Comet Anki as we call it the Taurid meteor shower. And it comes through the solar system, the inner solar system, twice a year. Oh, here, let me look this up real quick. Taurid meteor stream. Here we go. Here we go. All right, got a little bit of information pulled up here pretty quick. So the Taurids are a meteor shower associated with the comet Anki. So fireballs. They also let's see here. Periods that it occurs. It peaks November 5th, which is tomorrow by my calendar. I know y'all might be watching this at different times, but today is November 4th for me, and tomorrow's November 5th, so that's when it peaks. And it goes between September 23rd and December 8th, and it comes out of its radiant point is from the Taurus constellation. And so anyway, a lot of people hypothesize that our last large encounter with this meteor stream was Tunguska event of, let's see, when was that? The Tunguska event was, let's see, 1908. I should have known. And this, for people who don't know it, this explosion happened in a sparsely populated East Siberian taiga forest and fell tons of trees. As you can see in this little picture, this was decades after the fact that they went up and found where it had blown up. But it between 3 and 50 megatons of TNT equivalent, which is incredible. So it blew up in the sky, and they have hypothesized that it was that it came out of the Taurid meteor stream, and that was what impacted us. So let me see here. Let's go back to the presentation. So it's really interesting because as you can see this picture, right? This is Mithras killing the bull. And he's stabbing the bull in the shoulder, which is exactly where the meteors radiate out of the Taurus meteor stream. They radiate out of what is known as the Pleiades, which is a cluster of stars, bright stars in the Taurus, 7 bright stars in the Taurus constellation. And they are said to have come out of its shoulder. And so as you can see in this picture, you got Mithras, and he's stabbing the bull in the shoulder. And as you can see down here on the ground underneath the bull, you have this dog licking the wound. And then you have a snake coming up, and he's like suckling on that blood too. And then there's like maybe a crab underneath there doing something. But all of this stuff is symbolic. And if you are an initiated individual, which I am not, so I'm throwing out a lot of this stuff, but really I'm just trying to pique your interest so that you'll hopefully go and look into it. But all of this mythology, right? Like, it's as if different groups of people throughout history have had different bits of information, and some of it they shared freely, and others of it they hid in esoteric ways. And this is one of the things that they hid in an esoteric way, was the possibly the resetting of our current civilization, is what I believe. So as I continue into the presentation, I did get to see Ben Van Kerkwyk's presentation, and it was fascinating. He did it over the Labyrinth of Egypt, which is a structure at the Pyramid of Hawara, they believe, and it's pretty much all underground. And what is crazy about it is they think that they've only found the top portion of the maze, and that the maze may extend below ground multiple different stories. And as you can see in some of these pictures, the ancient depictions of it are wild. Like, it was probably one of the craziest things. Ancient authors who have said to have visited it said that it like dwarfed the pyramids. Like, it was more grand, it was more impressive than the pyramids of Giza. So, which is, the Great Pyramid. Something that's more impressive than that is going to blow your mind. But so this to say, in the same way that we do not know what we're looking at, when we look at these ancient sites and we're seeing, look at this crappy pyramid. This crappy pyramid out here. This thing's a freaking mountain, dude. Like, whoever built this thing was incredibly capable, and it was built an incredibly long time ago. And I don't believe it was built by slaves, right? This is, like, in order for something to still be standing thousands of years later, it had to have been built by somebody who knew what the heck they were doing, right? So we have this huge pyramid, beautiful relic, but we do not have access to the maze, right? So mainstream narrative tells us that all of this site was built by primitive people, by people that did not have the ability to circumnavigate the globe, or to even know that we lived on a globe, if we live on a globe. Get in the comments below to say if you think we live on a globe. I personally think that there is quite a bit of evidence that we probably live on some sort of a rotating object. I don't know what the shape of it is. But we're, I don't know. That's a topic for another episode. But anyway, it's just super fascinating. I think what it brings up is that the fact that we don't know what we're looking at. When we look at the ancient past, we're trying to conceptualize it into notions that we currently have and that we currently project on the past as, a linear, gradual climb out of savagery and into, advanced modernity, when in reality, in my opinion, what the archaeological evidence shows is more of a ebb and flow of civilization, where we enter periods of high technology and then we maybe enter into periods of low technology. And the wavelength on those, I believe, is up in the air, right? I've heard some people talking about possibly every 6,000 years, like we enter out of it, and 3,000 years, and then 6,000 years you're hitting this point and you go down for 6,000, then you go back up, and it's a 12,000 year half cycle, and then a 24,000 year full cycle for the great year or whatever. It could be different things. All that to say, when we look at a lot of these ancient sites, we have to take into account what we're seeing, what we're being exposed to, and what we're experiencing. And without the context of like how wild some of this stuff and how big some of this stuff was, I don't think we can get a proper vision, right? That to say, one of the other things I got to see at the Cosmic Summit 2025 was I got to meet this right here. You see me in the middle with Bob Grenier and Matt Beall. Matt Beall has a podcast called The Limitless Podcast, and it's actually, he has one of my most favorite interviews of Bob Grenier, who's also in this picture. And so it was really cool that I got to meet both of them. I also got to meet Matt's lovely wife, Crystal, and sit there and just chit chat. And as you can see in this background, I don't know if you can see it in the picture or not, but Billy Carson was sitting back there, and this dude is here. Let me see, what is his name? Praveen Mohan. He has a great YouTube channel and did a great presentation at the Cosmic Summit as well. But anyway, it was just super cool just to be in that space, because everybody in the YouTube universe that I watch was there for it. So it was really cool. Anyway, I got to spend a little bit of time with the stone vases. And this is one of those things that if you don't have the context of what you're looking at, you might not realize the significance of the object. So here you see me holding a pot in my hands, and that pot is probably at least 5,000 years old. I say pot, it's a stone vase, but it's one block of granite, and it's perfect. Like if they've put these things in 3D scanners and they come out to be perfect. These are all the different stone vases that they brought with them, which was, incredible. We're talking, each of these things is really a priceless artifact. Here is one of the infamous spinner vases. Let's see if I can.
Yes, I can make a video. Wait a second, yeah. It makes
So what's significant about that, this is one of those things where I do feel like a little bit of context is needed. The bottom of this stone vase is circular. It's a ball on the bottom of it. And so if you think most bowls have a flat bottom, right? So that you can set it on a table and it doesn't tip over and it doesn't spill, right? This stone vase, the bottom of it is circular. Meanwhile, if you set it on the table, the top of it finds perfect level. So the bottom of it, even though it's round, it still balances level on the plate, to the point where you can spin it and it will spin for a really long time because there's no bottom. It's a ball essentially, it's rounded. And with a precision that, we can't really achieve today. They've done some, hey, let's recreate this. But the problem with recreating these objects is nobody quite knows how to do these little, you see these lug nuts right here on the edge? They don't know how to do those, because if you're spinning it on a lathe, then you'd have to leave a ring all the way around the bowl, and then you have to go in and cut the out, cut out just to leave the little nubs. But it doesn't appear to be that. Like when you look at the actual 3D scans of these objects, it looks like even the middle of it was lathed out. Like it doesn't look like they ever stopped the lathe to make a ring around it. So it's a huge mystery as to even how these objects were made, or different things about them. And I mean, they're precise. They're incredibly precise. And some of the cool aspects. I'm going to leave the. I'll go ahead and turn the sound off.
I mean, that's the one that's verified back to the 1800s. Like, yeah, it's been in museums in the past. Yeah, and get under the shoulder.
It's just incredible. I mean, and is it, what material is this one? Diorite, or what is it?
I think it looks like diorite, yeah.
And do these have any interesting marks on the side?
Probably.
I've seen that one that has.
So the most interesting one is, you see it down there on the yellow?
Yeah.
So it's the same as this one, and I'll show Ben grabs it, but it's got an actual.
So that was me like sticking my finger in as deep as I could, knuckle deep, so to speak. And I couldn't feel, like, you can't feel the wall. And so the question is, like, what kind of material or what kind of object could they use to cut that inside rim like that and really get the same width of the outside all the way to that, all the way to the outside whenever you have to go in through this hole and cut, it's just incredibly complicated. And whenever you put this into context with the reset, you go in some interesting directions. So, okay. And so that's basically the end of my web presentation there. But what I was wanting to show is, so this is the Catherine Ulissey. And like I said, I didn't get to see her presentation at the Cosmic Summit, but I got to watch it afterwards and greatly enjoyed it. So this was one of the parts that I found really interesting, and this is kind of what I'm going to end on. I got this and one more video, and then we're going to call it good. So check this out. I'm kind of jumping in 21 minutes into her presentation, but this is the part that really blew my mind, and I think really contributes to the idea that you do not know what you're looking at.
The little tiny people on the bottom of the picture on the right, and the monumental, the breathtaking architecture of Egypt. So here you see some of the ram-headed sphinxes, and look behind them. There is that massive, monstrous mud brick wall, and there are mud bricks everywhere at Karnak. So Robert was leading a tour, and here we are in the Welcome Center, and they have...
Just a little side note on this. This woman was like a freaking ballerina, I think is what she grew up doing, or what she went to Boston. She was a teacher in Boston. And I was just thinking, like, what a freaking cool life to be in a completely different field and be an elite level performer in that field. And then just so happen to marry like a groundbreaking, geologist who's helping rewrite human history, and then get to travel all over the world while he's doing these different tours and talking with different, archaeologists and geologists and different stuff, and just getting to see all this stuff with like fresh eyes, right? She's not necessarily an archaeologist, but she's getting to see all of these things, and she's just asking natural questions. So anyway, let's continue.
Lovely diorama. And look what they made of that mud brick wall. They made it look like a very competent, very designed, right-angled wall. Well, I would argue that if the builders wanted a wall, they could make a stone one, not mud bricks. But anyway, as everyone was looking at this diorama, I walked to the back. And if you look over their heads, in the back wall, there are all kinds of archival images from when a major clearing was done at Karnak in the late 1800s, 1870 to 1903, they did
1870 to 1903. That's a very contemptuous period, I feel like. I think that what she is talking about happening in Egypt was probably happening all over the world, where some of these sites and some of these cities and some of this archaeological evidence was being reclaimed and renovated, right? And so it's like, what are we looking at here? Okay. Continue. Onward.
a massive, monstrous clearing of the site. I stood before this picture of some of the temple ruins, and I said, something about this looks wrong. This to me looks like a temple suffered a catastrophe and somebody piled up a whole lot of the rubble, the stone rubble. I'm thinking of Göbekli Tepe. I had just come from Göbekli Tepe. Was I seeing things? I don't know. Here's another angle. You can see the hypostyle lintels and you can see the blocks higher than that.
Okay. I really want to talk to this woman at some point in time. I'm kind of kicking myself in the foot because I actually saw her with Robert Schoch. Like, Robert Schoch was walking, of course I know who he is, and I was like, wow, dang, is that his freaking wife, man? Because they're both, older. I don't know how old they are, but she still, like, moved elegantly, and I was like, certain people at the Cosmic Summit look like they belong there, and other people don't look like they belong there. She didn't really look like she belonged there. But this is what I think she is dead on with this idea. This idea that there was a preservation period where they were burying these objects. So and now, granted, I don't want to put words into her mouth, but what I interpreted her saying is that whenever we modern 1800s, early 1900s people started to renovate these sites, what we were actually doing was unburying them from somebody that had tried to preserve them in a sense. So you end up getting scenes like this where you have all of these stone bricks piled right up against, but then to her point, let's see if I can find it here. To her point, look. So they find the site, and it looks like, this. But then they recreate the site to look like this. So now whenever we go to these sites today, we see, sorry, this is terrible. We see this, right? So if you see in the background, what she's talking about is you've got all of these stone structures, and then they stand up all of these brick structures right next to it. And we're supposed to think, oh, they're all from the same period, which, is kind of crazy. But I loved her presentation. She had all of these different old pictures where you can see, like, what was happening there? Like, and to her point, she's like, there's mud bricks everywhere at every single site. There are like huge discarded piles even of mud bricks. And so I loved this presentation. If you get a chance, definitely go check this out. I'm trying to see if we can see any. Like I said, here's more examples. You have this big, stone structure in the middle, and then you have these piles in the background of all these mud bricks. It's just kind of crazy. So, but her presentation was amazing, absolutely awesome. You kind of look at it, and as she's doing the presentation, she talks about a lot of stuff. As you can see, I'm just kind of clicking through here real quick. But check that out. Check that. I'll try to put a link. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description below. But hop up there, check out that presentation. It's awesome. And then I'm going to end on that same note to round out the concept of we do not know what we're looking at. We don't know what we're seeing when we're looking at these ancient sites as well as geological formations, as well as myths that are coming down through the ages. We hear them, we see them, we think we know what we're talking about, but we're completely missing the point. So this is my last little clip, and let's see.
Stonehenge was
okay, here we go. So funny thing enough, here he is again, freaking Matt Beall again, Limitless Podcast. This is Wandering Wolf, who was supposed to be at the Cosmic Summit, but something happened. It was funny because I think I talked to a couple of different people throughout the weekend, and they were essentially saying that something had happened. He had like some sort of a family emergency or something. He wasn't able to come, but I was really hoping to get to talk to him because his videos and his channel have really opened my mind to what a lot of these sites actually look like. And he walks around with his camera and his phone and different stuff and gives you, like, the first episode I ever saw of his was the Sage Wall of Montana, I believe. And it's crazy because, like I said, I've spent a lot of time out in the woods and just at, natural boulder outcroppings and stuff. And I've often had that thought where I'm sitting there sometimes, when you're just hanging out and you're looking around, you're like, man, is this just the ruins of an ancient, stone city that was massive and just completely crumbled, and now we're sitting in the ruins and we can't even see what we're looking at, So here, this is my last little clip. This clip, specifically, whenever he was on Matt Beall's podcast, really changed my mind about a lot of these ancient sites and about the fact that we have no clue what we're looking at.
Constructed. We don't know that it was in that shape and stacked the way it was. When was it restacked? I think sometime around the turn of the century or 1900s, maybe. I mean, there's photographic evidence. If
just blocks lying around.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then using and lifting them with cranes.
Really?
Yeah. There's a bigger picture to all of the stuff around the world. You've seen things in person, and I encourage anybody that's able to do it. It does give you a great understanding of how important it is to question everything, to document things when you can, because they're not going to stay the same. Stonehenge was...
So, to the point, I mean, if you look at the different pictures in that clip, what you see is Stonehenge. So you see these huge rocks, but that's not, we're not seeing how they were when they found them. We're seeing how they were after they reconstructed Stonehenge. So it's just kind of an interesting, it gives an interesting perspective to the overall field when you start to understand what we're seeing, what I'm thinking I'm seeing whenever I'm looking at Stonehenge. I'm actually seeing a relic, I'm seeing a remnant, I'm seeing a footprint, like I'm seeing a fossil. And that fossil has been manipulated. That fossil has been reassembled and realigned and set, which hopefully it was in good faith, and hopefully all of the ways that they set everything up was back exactly how it was when they found it, or at how it was originally, like back in the day. It's hard for me to believe that, though. It's hard for me to believe that they nailed it. I noticed a lot of this this last summer. I got a trip to go down to Mexico. We went down to Mexico, went down to a resort with some friends, and I was really wanting to get off site and go to some of these ancient sites. It just so happened that we were like a little bit too far from them. It would have killed too much of the day, and nobody really wanted to come with me, and it was going to be a little expensive, so I was just like, I kind of ended up dropping it, deciding not to go. However, one of the things that I realized as I was researching a lot of these old Mexican sites, these old Mayan sites, a lot of them are reconstructed with concrete. So they had the base structure kind of like, they were like, oh, this is kind of, oh, well, this block is laying here, it must have gone right here, but it doesn't really fit, right? So like they'd hold it up and it wouldn't really fit. So they would just fill in the spots that didn't fit with concrete. So now whenever we walk up to these, like the Temple of the Sun and these different sites, what we're seeing is a reconstruction of the site. We're not seeing the original site. We're seeing, I say we, I haven't seen them, you know. I really want to. That's on my list. And hopefully once if this channel will take off, if y'all will like, subscribe, and comment, you know, if this channel will go off, like that's one of the things I'm wanting to do is go out and see some of these sites in person just for the experience, right? Just so I can maybe try to get my own mind around some of these things and around how they happen. So anyway, that was a quick presentation. Even though it was an hour long, I feel like I jumped over a bunch of stuff and I was pretty jumbled. So I apologize if you have made it to this point in the video. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoy it. This is going to get smoother, I promise. Like right now I'm still going with the camera at the top of the computer. So a lot of the times I'm looking over here because I'm looking at my screen, and so I'm going to try to get all this cleaned up to where it looks better for y'all. It sounds better. Like for some reason my headphones weren't working, so I don't know if I'm too close or too far back from the mic. So, but anyway, thank y'all for tuning in. Just remember, like, there are a lot of barriers to entry, and you've got to escape the paradigm that you've been confined to. And I do believe it's a confining aspect. Like, you have been siloed into a view of ancient civilization that is not correct, and not even close to correct. Like, not to say that I've got the correct answer. I don't think anybody has the correct answer. The deeper that I look into this, the more involved I get. Like coming back from the Cosmic Summit 2025, what I realize is that there's just more questions. People are finding stuff every day. There are people that are finding stuff that are keeping it quiet because they want the credit for finding it. There are people who are finding stuff and are going to keep it secret forever. They might even destroy it instead of like bringing it to the popular, you know, concept. So just keep looking. That's what I would say. What my takeaway from the Cosmic Summit 2025 was just keep digging. Number one, there are barriers to entry. If you want to have conversations about this stuff and you want to look into this stuff, there's so much great information. And I would say go with, I do think the natural instinct is very important. I'm not saying you need to seek becoming an expert, but you need to dig into the world that already exists, right? And a lot of these presenters at the Cosmic Summit, one huge shout out I want to give is to this dude right here, this Hugh Newman right here. Let's see if it pulls it up real quick. From Megalithomania. His videos, which let's see here, if you hop over to my last presentation over a different type of tech, let's see down here, actually several of these I think were Hugh Newman pictures, but this was for sure all this Baalbek stuff, like right there, I'm pretty sure that's Hugh Newman right there in that picture. So which this was an amazing this is just an amazing site that not very many people know about. But I talked about that in my last episode, A Different Type of Tech, which you can go back and watch that presentation. It was pretty fun. So right here, A Different Type of Tech. But however, this dude, Hugh Newman, I feel really bad because I passed him at the Cosmic Summit. And he looked at me, like made eye contact. And I think he was expecting me to say, like, oh shit, you're Hugh Newman. But I recognized him, but I didn't know who he was. So I felt bad. I was like, man, I really wish I could have, I really wish I had have not only recognized him, but acknowledged that that's who it was, because I would have liked to have said hi to him because he's a cool dude. But I got to say hi to a lot of these other dudes that I wanted to say hi to. I say dudes and dudettes, girls and boys, and it was awesome. So I loved my experience. I'm hoping to go back next year and just keep the ball rolling. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for checking this out. Like I said, I'm planning on it getting better, but I'm also ready to start getting some videos out and start getting some content flowing. So thank you for watching. Thank you for checking it out. Hopefully subscribe. Follow me on some social medias. I'm Panhandle Primate, the Panhandle Primate podcast, wherever you look. So just, probably type into Google the, Panhandle Primate and see what pops up. So thank you for watching. Thank you for checking this out. And until next time, peace.